So as you saw in the previous video, you can add all kinds of interactivity to a document that you can then export as an interactive PDF or as a fixed layout EPUB or as a reflowable EPUB or even to publish things online. And all of this is based with the interactions that you can actually add to these documents is based on buttons. Now, a button can be used to navigate to different pages, as you saw in the previous example in the previous video, or to go to a specific page in a document. You can also play movies, sounds, animations. You can even show and hide buttons with buttons themselves. And you can even show and hide the button where you click. So there's a lot of interactivity that you can create with this specific type of object. So that's what we're going to be doing in this video. For this, I'm going to create a new document. And I'm going to be using the same size that I've been using for my previous presentations. And I am going to import a document to place it as the background, just like we had in the past. This time I am going to create a frame before I start, and I'm going to place the frame. I'm going to make sure that the frame occupies the length of the size of the page. So I'm going to align it, and I'm going to make sure up here in this case that it is actually 1024 by 768. If I go back to my regular workspace, to my Essentials workspace, my properties should show on the right hand side, and basically they will allow you to see the way you've seen from the beginning of the semester or the beginning of using this program. But when we go to the interactive workspace, which is digital publishing, our properties move up to the top. And so you can go ahead and keep an eye on the same things that you would see on the right hand side appear at the top. So that's the only difference. Now you can always dislodge that from up there and put it on the right hand side if you want to, but then now you're running out of real estate on the right hand side. So be careful when you move those menus that you don't find yourself with very little space to actually design. So with this in mind, what I want to do with this frame selected, I want to upload the image background 2 into that specific frame, and there it is. It's resized exactly to the size of the page. Now I want to maintain this for now at the actual opacity that I'm looking at it. So I'm not going to go semi-transparent with effects like I did on this one. I am going to maintain it as is for now. I just want to use it as a background. But to make sure that I don't select it and that I don't move anything by accident or remove something, I want to lock that layer. So to do so, I'm going to my layers menu, which is the little one with the little rectangles. And then I'm going to do two things. First, I'm going to rename that layer by double clicking its name, and I'm going to give it the name of background, or BG in my case. And then I'm going to lock that layer so that I don't by accident click on it and do something to it. So when I click on it, you'll notice that I cannot do anything in it. Now what I want to do is I want to add a new layer, and this is where I'm going to be doing the button interactions that we're going to be talking about right now. So, and I should call that layer buttons. Now I can call this layer for now navigation, because my navigation will be 3 buttons here that are going to call 3 different images on the right hand side. They will all be buttons, but this will be my navigation layer, and the next one up here, I'm going to create a new one, will be my content or images. I'm going to call it images. So now let's go back to the navigation layer, and I am going to create 3 buttons with text boxes. So for this one, what I want to do is I want to create a menu that's going to call an image on the right hand side. So I am going to create a text box here, and I'm going to type the word. For this one, I am going to type the word. Let's see if I can. Cheesecake. I'm going to start with cheesecake. Cheesecake, cinnamon rolls, and coconut panna cotta. So I'm going to use cheesecake. That will be the first one. I'm going to select that text, and I'm going to change the properties for it. I'm going to increase its size. So let's start with that. First things first. I'm going to change the size to about 36 point, and I am going to change the font from Minion Pro to something that's a little bit more like what we've been using, in this case Avenir, probably Roman in this case, and maybe reduce the size a little bit to 30 so that it fits inside that box. No, so that's fine, and that will be what I will use as a button. Now you'll notice that when I create a text box and the text and I start typing, the text is aligned to the top of the box and to the left. If you want to have the text aligned to the center, you can always select the text and change the alignment in the alignment properties window, which is up here, or in our case, if I were to change back to essentials, it would be on the right hand side. Let me change back to essentials really quick, and you will notice that the alignment for this will be right here under paragraph. You can also align the text box inside the actual text box. So in last week in a different video, we saw the beginning of text box options. So we have the ability to access options that is specific to the container of text, not to the text itself, but to the container. So if I right click on that text box and I go to text frame options, I have not just the ability to create columns and the things that I talked about last week. The inset spacing is what we work with to push things from the top or from the sides, that little extra space that I have around my box. But we also have the ability to align where the text goes inside the box. So right now, as you can see, the vertical justification for it is at the top. I can make it center or I can make it bottom. So I have the ability to control that as well. And that will remain so even as I resize the box. So let me go ahead and click OK on this, and you'll notice that as I resize the box, the text will place itself in the center, where in the center space of whatever I have available as a text box. So that's handy, and I'm going to use that to my advantage right now. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this by pressing Control Shift Alt and drag down so that I can make a copy of it. And the next one will be called cinnamon rolls. So I'm going to call that cinnamon rolls. Cinnamon, how do I spell cinnamon rolls? Cinnamon rolls, I believe it's double M. Let's see if it is. Cinnamon, it's to double N, sorry, my apologies. Okay, so cinnamon with one M. All right, and you'll notice that if I'm running out of space, I can always expand these boxes, and I can select two boxes at the same time and expand them both if I need to, so that I maintain that the same size amongst the boxes, amongst the different text fields. You will also notice that as I'm dragging and copying, you'll see those little green arrows that indicate to me spacing. So it's a smart helper that is telling me, okay, if you let go right now, the spacing between the top and middle boxes is the same as the middle and the bottom. So that helps me. Those guides help me so that I can design fairly quick. Let me select all these three things, move them up ever so slightly so that they're not on that hole on the wood. And I'm going to change the third one to, oops, sorry, not save. I want to change that to panna cotta. So this is going to be panna cotta. All right. So with this done, these boxes, these text boxes will become my navigation for what I'm about to do next, which is I want to import those three images. And I want to now click and drag to create a box where I'm going to be dropping the first picture. But remember, while I'm dragging, I can always press my right arrow tool to create more than one box. And that's what I plan to do. I want to create three boxes to import all three images. Now, when I let go, they're available to me right there. I want to, since they're all selected right now, I can always go ahead and work with the fitting. So if I go fill frame proportionally, they're going to increase in size and they're going to be placed the way I intend them to be. And what I want to do is I want to align them all to the right hand side. So to do that, with them selected, I can go ahead and click and they will align to the right hand side. Now, if you're not sure if they will align to the right hand side or if everything will be aligned elsewhere, with items still selected, click once again on one of the items. You will notice that makes the outline thicker. And that indicates once you have things selected, let me do that again. So these three things are selected. They were selected. Now that I have them all three selected, I let go of the mouse so I don't have any, I'm not clicking. Then I'll click once on this image. That means anything that I'm about to do will be referenced from this image. So I want to align to the left side of the screen, to the left image right here, to this point. So that becomes my reference image. That's when you see those thicker lines, as if you click once again. Now with everything still selected, now I'm going to go ahead and move everything to this corner here, and I'm going to resize it to make them fairly big. And so I want to make sure that I'm pressing the Shift and the Alt key, click and wait for the little white arrows to show, and then as I am clicking, sorry, let me do that again. Hold on Just 1 second. Sorry, not the Shift and the Alt key, is the Control and Shift key. Control and Shift key, and then as I drag, I am resizing all of the images along with the boxes. Once again, go to the handle that you want to use, press Control Shift on the keyboard, and while still pressing them, click and drag on that handle so that you are resizing the boxes and their content at the same time. So I'm going to make them fairly large. I want to see this big as I go. Now, I would like each one of them to have some sort of text attached to them or something like that. So if I wanted to do that, I could just simply create text boxes, place them in here or next to them, and then group them. And you can group items in InDesign like you group them in Illustrator or in any other program, but which is by selecting the items and pressing Control G on the keyboard. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and create a text box, and I am going to create a text field, and I'm going to say I'm going to put a price on them. So let's say this is a menu for prices. So I'll say $, and each cinnamon roll is $3.50. Let's say $3.50. That will be the price for each one of these items. So let's assume that this is an app for ordering pastries. So I'm going to go ahead and select the text box, and I'm going to change the size of it, and I'm going to make it as large as possible. There you go. That's a pretty good one. And what I want to do at this point is align this with my cinnamon rolls. So if I do that and I select that field and the cinnamon rolls fields, now I can group them by pressing Control G or Command G on the keyboard. So I'm pressing Control G. Now they became an object, both of them. Now if I want to do this with the other images as well, same thing applies. So let me go ahead and undo that really quick so that I have this text field on its own. So I'm going to select that text field on its own, Control C to copy it. Then now that I have it in memory, I'm going to get the field, shift click on the image to select both things, and then I'm going to group them. Now that they're grouped, I'm going to send them backwards. So I'm going to go ahead and right click, and on my arrange drop down, I'm going to send to back. And that sends that image all the way to the back of the stack. Now I'm going to deselect by clicking on the anywhere but the item. So and then if I click on the pasteboard, that works. Then I'm going to paste in place so that I get another text field on top of that field. So I go paste in place. There it is, $3.50. So that is the one that's on top. The cheesecake is a little bit more expensive, so that's $5.50, let's say. So that becomes the $5.50 field, which is right on top of the other one. So with that $5.50 field, I'm going to select the cheesecake image, group them, and send them backwards. Okay. And now the panna cotta. Now I'm going to paste in place once again. Paste in place because I have that field in memory. There it is. And the panna cotta is going to be $4.50. And I am going to, with that field selected, select the panna cotta and then group them. So now I have a stack of 3 things that have been grouped with the text and image. So now that I have them all set up this way, what I want to do is I want to start making them buttons. So this item here will be a button, and all 3 images will be buttons, and all 3 of these things will be buttons as well. Okay, so with that done, what I want to do is I want to go back to my view workspace for digital publishing, and let me close my now actually I want to move the items that I created here to the images folder. So I want to select all of them right here by dragging a selection across all of my images. The stack of images is right here, and I'm simply going to move that little red dot to the top layer, so that if I turn it off, I turn off all of those images that I have up there. So that's how you can move items from one layer to another. You can also copy and paste. You will also notice that each layer has a little drop down, and each drop down is basically representing each one of the things that you have in here. So if you turn each one off at a time, you have the ability to see what's behind it one at a time inside that particular layer. So if I want to rename this group, for example, cinnamon roll, that's what I have available here. You can just go ahead and expand, double click on that name, and let's say I'm going to call it rolls. That one is called rolls. This one's going to be called cheesecake. So I'll call it cheesecake. And this one at the top is panna cotta. So I'll go ahead and say panna cotta. Okay. You actually have to triple click to get access to that to the layer, or you control click it. That's the way you access that in the layers names if you want to change the name of a layer. So now they have been renamed according to the way they were going to be naming them as buttons. So I'll select the panna cotta one, and that group I'm going to turn into a button. So let me close this layers window, and I'm going to open up my buttons form, and I'm going to turn it into a button. And I know this at this point you're probably asking yourselves, why make it a button? Well, because like I said before, you can hide and show buttons by using buttons, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's click on button. And what I want to do in this case is I don't want any action for it. I just simply need it to be a button, but I want to give it a name that is that represents what I'm looking at. So I'm going to call that button panna image, IMG. Let's call it that. Panna image. Okay. And let me go back to my layer window, turn off the panna cotta visibility, and I'm going to choose the cheesecake. Go back to the buttons window, make it a button, and I'm going to call it cheese image. So now I have two buttons. One is panna image, the other one is cheese image. Now let me go back to my layers window, to my layers panel, turn off the visibility for cheese, and select the rolls right here. Boom. And I'm going to turn that into a button, and I'm going to call it rolls image. And hit return. That's all. I just need those three things to be buttons. Now let me turn them on again, turn the visibility on of all those ones. And now let's work on these buttons that are going to hide and show those over here, the buttons over here. Now, one thing before I go, I move on from these buttons that I had selected, I had created here, is that in the buttons window, you will notice that as I select them, I have the ability to keep them hidden until triggered, and that's what I want to use this for. That I'm making them a button so that I can hide them. So if I go ahead and click hide, that panna cotta image won't show as soon as I run the program. Now let me turn off the visibility on panna cotta. Let me go to cheesecake, select cheesecake, go to the buttons window, hidden until triggered, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the rolls image, for the rolls group. Just this one here. Select it, make sure that the button is selected, and then I'll go hidden until triggered. So with that done, I'm going to turn them back on again. Now I'm going to focus on my navigation. So let's close that, the layers window. And in this case, I want to make this button, and I'm going to call it cheese button in this case. So I'm going to make it a button, and I'm going to call it cheese BTN, cheese button. This one will be called cinnamon, or I'll call it rolls button, and this one's going to be called panna button. Panna button. So now I have three buttons here. The first one, cheese button, rolls button is the second one, and the third one is panna button. Now each one of these will remain on, so we're not going to hide any of these because that's my navigation. But what they will do is when I click on any of them, they will show or hide the image that is being requested per the button, and they will hide everything else over here in my content. So how do I do that? Well, let's go to cheesecake, to the cheesecake button, and the action that I want on this is going to be triggered by the event that's going to trigger this is going to be a release, so that's fine. If in my actions, I want to click on show hide buttons and forms. So when I click on that, you will notice that we get now a new window here that is going to tell you these are all the buttons that you have available on your application. So if you want to hide or show, you choose from the different options that you have here. When I click on cheesecake, I want to show the cheese image. So I'll click on that X to show the little eye. But at the same time, I want to hide the panna image. So I click twice on that one so that I have the little eye with the line across it. And I want to hide the rolls image. Those two images get hidden while the cheese image is shown. The other three, which are my buttons on the navigation, don't get affected, so I will leave those as X's. I will do the exact same thing for the cinnamon rolls. The action I want to do is show hide buttons, and this is going to show the rolls, and it's going to hide the other two images. And the other buttons, the rest of the buttons, do not get affected. And then I'll select the panna cotta button, same action. show hide buttons, and I'm going to show on this one, I'm going to be showing the panna cotta. So I'll show it and hide the other two below it, and the navigation does not get affected. So that is how you set up those buttons. Now, remember, you can always select the button and create an extra action for rollover. So if I wanted to change the text color of the buttons as I roll over, I'll select the rollover action to make a copy of the normal state. Then I'll double click on the state itself under rollover and go to the, you can actually highlight the text if you want to, and you can change the color of the actual text by clicking on the colors up here. So let's say, for example, if I wanted to make this, let's say I want to make it blue when I roll over. That's an icky color to choose, but that's okay. So my normal state will be black and the rollover state will be blue. Let's try that same thing with cinnamon rolls. So I'll click on that, double click on this, and if I select colors for this, I can now go ahead and actually, and so you'll notice that I didn't double click to select the text. And that is because inside the colors box, I right now have the text box selected. But inside the colors for that text box, I also have access to the formatting effects for the actual text. So if I click on that little T, any change I make will affect the actual text inside that box. So let's make that blue, and you'll notice that it turns into blue. That's my rollover state. If I go back to normal, it goes back to black. Let's go back on cheesecake. Let's go back to black. Panna cotta is the last one. So I have that selected. Click on this. Make sure that I'm actually making the rollover state, sorry. So I make the rollover state first. Double click the object so that I can select the text box. Click on the drop down menu for the colors for whatever is on the text box or the actual text. Now, let's say, for example, you don't click on the T. What's going to happen is you're going to be adding a color to the fill color of the box. Like if I click on this, boom, my box turns into blue, and that's not what I want. I want to affect the text. So let me undo that by pressing Control Z on the keyboard and going back again to that, selecting the text, focus, and then making that blue. Then I'll go back to normal so that it is black, and this is pretty much set up already. So when I test this, I want to play it on my EPUB interactivity window. So I'll go there. This is being only one page. It doesn't matter if I choose one page or the multi-page because I only have one page, so it's only going to play one. And if I just simply hit play, I'm going to see the preview of this once it exports the HTML documentation and all that. And I see my menu, and I roll over and I see the rollover state. And when I click on cheesecake, it becomes available to me. If I click on cinnamon rolls, cheesecake disappears and I see the cinnamon rolls. And if I click panna cotta, I see the panna cotta option, and everything else gets hidden. So my navigation is no longer linear the way we were doing with pages. Now I can do what we call non-linear navigation by moving from one to another in no specific order. So this provides you with the ability to create a fairly fast slideshow, for example, and to actually create very quick interactivity that works both for your EPUBs and for interactive PDFs. Now in the next video, I'm going to show you how to start including some of the animations into this interactivity so that your presentations become a lot more interesting, not only interesting, but that you can start putting some of those affordances that the users expect when they're doing transactions, such as clicking on buttons and seeing something animate, or by clicking on something and having that something fade in. Things like that, which are the things that people expect from applications, interactive applications normally. So we'll see that in the next video.